Lorraine Beeman. I'm a career coach who helps people excel during interviews by sharing insights and strategies on how to respond to questions. Like the question, what are your salary expectations? In preparing an answer for this question, you need to do two things. One is you need to figure out what your expectations are, and the other is how to convey that to an employer. So let's start with figuring out what your expectations are. First of all, you're going to develop a range. And throughout the rest of this video, I'm going to refer to X and Y, and X being the lowest part of the range and the Y being the highest part of your range. The first thing you want to do to figure out that bottom X is to figure out what your living expenses are. Calculate everything you need to maintain the lifestyle that you want to, and that is the absolute X. Now, let's find out what the industry is willing to pay people who are in that position. And there's several resources that are really great. Salary.com is great. Paycheck.com, Glassdoor.com, and one that I like to use is Indeed.com. And you're going to say, well, Indeed.com, that's a great place to find jobs. But actually, it's also a great place to do salary research. So open Indeed.com, put in the type of job that you're looking for, the region where you're going to be working, and see what comes up in terms of job descriptions. Find job descriptions that are similar to the one that you're applying for, and look at the salary range. So between Indeed.com, Salary.com, all of those online websites, you should start to have a range. Again, the low and the high. Then if possible, you want to talk to someone in the company to get some feedback on the range that you've developed. Now, we never call somebody and say, gee, how much do you make? No, we call and say, gee, I am applying for this position with your company. One of the things I have to respond to is, what are my salary expectations? If I say that my salary expectations are between X and Y, do you think that is going to be within the company budget? Is that a good amount to ask for? The response will probably be, oh, yeah, that's great, you're right on the money, or you may be asking for a little bit too much, or wow, you can move it up. Now, why is it important to have a range that is accurate and that really is tied into the market value of what you bring to a company? It's because when an employer hears the salary range, they quickly calculate that, oh, this person either works below the level that we expect, at the level we expect, or above the level we expect. And sometimes when people get the, oh, you're overqualified, what's really happening is the employer is saying, we really can't afford you, or if you earn that much in the open market, then you have more skills and talents than we need. You're overqualified. So spend a lot of time doing your homework so you have your range you're comfortable with. Write it down on a piece of paper, because sometimes we aren't comfortable saying what our salary expectations are, which leads us to the second part of preparing an answer for that question. You will be asked what are your salary expectations probably several times during the hiring process. The first one will come during the screening interview. That's often a short phone call. Maybe somebody from Human Resources calls you. Usually this question's about, what do you know about the job? Why you're interested in working for us? I have other videos on that. But one of the questions that comes up is, what are your salary expectations? At this point, you want to answer in a very generic way. My suggestion is you say, based on my understanding of the position and industry standards, I would expect that the salary would be between X and Y. Is that what you're thinking? This gives the person the opportunity to say, oh, that's fine, and then your range is pretty good, or oh, that's higher than we were thinking, which gives you an opportunity to say, well, really, I am very interested in this position. I would really like to move forward, and salary is not really that big an issue for me. Now you're saying, Lorraine, why would I say that? They don't even know you yet. They don't even know your value. You want to keep the process moving forward. And if they say, oh yeah, that'll work, you have a little bit of an insight that maybe you can move your salary expectations up. The next point of that question often comes up is when you do the one-on-one Zoom meeting for about an hour. That's where you all the generic questions, the specific questions, and then these, what are your salary expectations? I suggest that you modify your answer a little bit and your range if you've gotten feedback that it was too high or too low. But at this point, you might say, well, based on my experience, based on my education, basically you're saying, based on what I bring to this job, I would expect the salary being between X and Y. Is that what you were thinking? And again, you'll have that feedback, too high, too low, that's fine. You will progress to the point where you're almost getting an offer, or they really are inviting you in for that meeting, probably with your boss or your boss's boss. And the question will come up pretty quickly, what are your salary expectations? And at that point, you want to make a pretty good case why you deserve that salary range of X to Y. So based on what you've learned during the interview, you've picked up what's important to them. You want to build on that. For example, when I was talking to, referring back to a previous interview, we really talked a lot about the importance of what was important to them. And based on my experience in that area, I would think that a salary range between X and Y would be reasonable. What do you think? Okay, so quick recap. You're going to do all your homework so that you know your range. You're going to write it down so that if you're one of those folks that gets a little nervous when you're having to talk about money, you're just reading it off. It's not coming out of your brain. It's just you're reading it off a piece of paper. You're going to change your responses as you move through the interview process. In the very beginning, it's just sort of, based on my knowledge and of the job and the industry, I would think it's this. And then you're going to go to, well, since I bring all of this experience to, and then you ask for your salary range. And then as you progress through the interview process, you're going to refer back to issues that were brought up in earlier interviews, saying, based on the discussion of what these projects and all, I think that a reasonable salary would be between X and Y. Best of luck in getting the salary that you deserve for the job that you're applying for.